2.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's another Monday of our second segment of the discussion on The Last Dance, brought to you by ESPN. And, of course, we're FightCard Entertainment. I'm ring announcer reporter Joe Rossi. With me is our special guest, awesome fighter for 13 years. Once again with me from Indiana, an authentic Bulls fan himself, Mr. Terry House. What's up, Terry?
Happy to be in the building. What's going on? How's it going?
Good to see you, my man. We hope everybody made the best of their weekend, the best possible way they can. Of course, we're still all in the same situation. We want to thank all our fans here on Facebook all over the world. And, of course, we want to expand our horizons on sports besides MMA. So we're doing this little discussion here. And we're going to get right to it, Terry. Parts 3 and 4. All I could say before we start talking about certain pieces was, wow. Right? It's getting better and better, my man, right?
Oh, man. The look inside of Dennis Rodman, man, he was a piece of work. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you.
Dennis Rodman was a...
They call him the rebound king on the court, but he was also the rebound king with the women, dude. He had women all over the place,
man.
brother. I got to tell you that.
Hey,
Madonna, Carmen Electra. We're going to get to that later, bro. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. Dennis Rodman was a piece of work, man. Let's jump right into it, man.
Let's jump into it. We're going to be ready for our first clip here, fans watching, and we're going to discuss it. So let's take a let's start our discussion here, Ter.
Well, let's start with Dennis Rodman. You know what I mean?
The image overall, the image as a person. It was brought up there to him. Does it hurt him the way the public perceived him as a crazy human being? To take it from there, he felt that he only wanted to be himself, to make himself happy. How do you perceive all of that? The way he responded to the media and public on how he truly was as a person.
Well, one thing I learned was the moment you are and what people really think about you is the moment you're here for the wrong reason. You know what I mean? And he may have came across as a bad guy to everybody else, you know.
One thing, don't forget though, Tara. I'm sorry, I wanted to mention this before. It was mentioned in the documentary. We took him in. Now, was he going to be accepted being a part of that Bad Boys team? That we got to say it how it was. They kicked our ass 2 years in a row, but we overcame that, and we kicked their asses. So now you're talking about a guy who was a instrument. Don't forget what he did to Pippen too. I mean, he almost hurt Pippen too in that one Eastern Conference Final game. So you're talking about a guy who came from the most hated team of the Bulls and became loved. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, the one thing that he had in common with them at the end of the day was he was a winner and he wanted to win. You know, and what people don't realize is you got that attitude right then and there, you can sort out everything else. You know, so when he came in, they had a meeting with him. You know, he met with Michael Jordan, he met with Phil Jackson, and you know, from what we were told back then, they asked him to apologize, Scotty. You know, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but it all worked out in the end. You know what I mean? They brought in another proven winner. You know, it just added to the dynasty, which is, you know, that second three-peat Bulls. You know what I mean? So it all worked out in the end. You know what I mean? We've all had problems with people in our day, and it happened. I'm happy that it worked out.
Right. You know what? And plus, I think it was a blessing in disguise, considering Pippen's injury at the time that they had brought him in there. He was a big key factor when Scotty was hurt, too. Don't forget about that as well.
Absolutely, man. You know, Dennis Rodman was he was the original mystery. Everybody, he's known for his rebounding. Of course, he was an incredible rebounder. But at the same time, he did shit that didn't show up on the stat sheet. He threw his body around. He fit charts. He pumped the team. He was actually a really good locker room person. A lot of people give him credit for that. He was a really good locker room person. You know what I mean? So he was the original Mr. Intangible, man. He not only rebounded, but he did a lot of stuff that didn't show up on the stat sheet, man. You know, energy, getting players hyped up, you know, making sure the spirit is high, you know, and he did a great job with Jordan in the absence of Pippen, helping these other guys elevate their game, you know, so they can get it back on track until Pippen got back. So.
Absolutely. I got to agree with you there. In the end, it was the final perfect piece to the puzzle. On that, let's move on as we're going to keep talking about these episodes here, not to mention you brought up Michael Jordan. I mean, we're going to remember what he said about Dennis Rodman, that he was the smartest player he ever played with. Now, can the Bulls would have won, you think, without Rodman? Do you think that could they have still won a championship? You know what I mean?
It's hard to say. I want to say yeah, but I want to say no to the three-peat because it's hard to see who else they could have brought in to fill that role. You know what I mean? So I want to say yeah, they maybe one, maybe two out of the deal, but I don't think it would have been that second three-peat without Dennis Rodman. You know, so
I think
it's kind of hard.
And you know what? I went along with what I had to agree on some things said yesterday. The right people were there for him to be successful in Chicago. Phil Jackson being probably the top guy there, then Michael Jordan. I mean, I'm saying Phil as the coach because obviously he had to relate, he had to take orders from Phil above Michael. Michael obviously was the leader of the team. But I mean, when he got along with Phil Jackson the way he did, I mean, I think that was like the icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
But once again, we were talking about this in the last episode. You know, it goes to show the Phil Jackson's genius and how he dealt with the players and how he allowed everybody to be themselves. He knew what they were getting at Dennis Rodman. You know what I mean? They sat down, they talked to him. They say, "Look, you know, we can win, man. You know, you come in and you keep the antics down some, and like, dude, we can get this done. You know." And he bit into the system. You know what I mean? Because he wanted to win. You got to remember when he was in San Antonio. He had just finished helping David Robinson win Defensive Player of the Year. You know what I mean? He was still contributing, even by him being up in age. He was still helping David Robinson win and San Antonio win, but he was a problem. You know, nobody down in San Antonio knew how to deal with him.
They didn't have the proper personnel. I agree with you there.
And it got to the point where they let him go for Will Perdue.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, you're talking about a steal.
Right. So based on that, I mean, obviously, like the media, I mean, the referees, let's talk about them. I mean, you heard that conversation he had. Did you see, remember that referee? He said Dennis was pissed. He hadn't called the calls. The ref was like, well, I see all the shit you do. You know what I mean? You don't see some of the shit that against me, but you see everything I do. Do you feel like, did that really take a big toll on him, thinking he was discriminated like that or marked as a guy that, other people could get away with shit, but Rodman couldn't?
Well, his reputation preceded him. You know, like I said, he was one of the original bad boys. You know what I mean? He was a bad boy in person. So sometimes your reputation precedes you. You know what I'm saying? And perception is everything. A lot of people who didn't know him personally only knew him on the court. So what the refs saw on the court was what they actually dealt with. You know what I mean? So
right.
Got to know him personally and know him as who he was off the court. You can only judge a person by who they were actually on the court. You know, so he had that reputation, and I mean, it was just something he had to deal with. You know, credit to Dennis. You know, I mean, he didn't snap off as much in Chicago as he did anywhere else.
I could only remember how many times he got thrown out in Chicago. Was it twice? Once? I mean, there was that one big time Jordan got pissed. But I mean, compared to Detroit and San Antonio, he was a lot worse with that on the court.
Less than a handful. They would actually allow him, and once he gets too far off, they pull him in and say, "Hey man, like, all right, let you do a little bit. So we need you to come back focused." And I mean, it was just like a light switch, man. He flipped that switch, and he'd be back on, you know. So, like I said, it goes back to he wanted to win. At the end of the day, you know, a lot of people think that when we acquired Dennis Rodman, it was more like, oh, you're getting Dennis Rodman. He was considered more on the washed up side at that time. You know what I mean? Nobody was really checking for him, and then the antics that he was pulling off the court, nobody was really checking for Dennis Rodman. So in that mindset, he wanted to prove that he was still one of the best rebounders of all time, one of the best defensive players of all time. And he knew going to Chicago and winning those championships with the Bulls would prove that. So you can talk about what his antics and everything. He was a very smart man, very smart individual, and he knew he can come to Chicago and resurrect his career.
Right. And he did it. Based on that, okay, we're talking about the problems with the media and the referees felt about him. But let's go back to all right, in the beginning, you saw Jerry Krause want nothing to do with him. He was convinced. You know what I mean? And we'll go back to Chuck Daly. Chuck Daly was a great coach, okay? But back then, you had the bad boys. They wanted to tame Rodman there. What did Chuck Daly say? You don't put a saddle on a Mustang, right? Jerry Krause at first thought he was too wild, but then the right people convinced him. And it goes back to Phil Jackson. I think Phil Jackson was the first person to really know that full potential. I mean, and he listened to him. Like when he went to Jerry Krause, Phil expected the dentist to get off the couch and this and that. And what did Phil? He didn't. But what did Phil say? All right, Dennis, get up the couch, shake my hand. Let's go for a walk when they have dinner. And from there, the rest was history. It was like he was hypnotized by Phil Jackson. I think personally, deep down inside, Dennis knew how the Bulls really felt about him and that they believed in him. You know what I mean?
Well, if you look back then and look at now, Chuck Daly knew how to deal with Dennis at that time. You had two different Dennis Rodmans. That was when he first got drafted and got to Detroit, and when he came to Chicago. It was two different Dennis Rodmans. Chuck Daly knew he was young, he was vibrant, he can score a lot of points. He was very energetic, and his style of play was perfect for what they wanted to do. So while they was trying to put Dennis in the system, Chuck Daly said, "Hey man, no, turn him loose, let him do his thing. We already have Bill Laimbeer, we have Spider Salad, we have guys that can take the. We need this raw energy. We need this young thoroughbred to get out and just do what he do for us." So at that time, Chuck Daly knew how to deal with Dennis Rodman then. Then he come to Chicago. He's more seasoned. He's a different person. He's grown up in the league and he's evolved to the person that he is now. And you have the mastermind of Phil Jackson, who knew how to deal with him on that calm level, on that perfect level, to know his personality, know what he was capable of, and to keep that under control. So you had two different Dennis Rodmans back in Detroit and when he first came to Chicago, and he was fortunate enough to have two great coaches to understand him at that time. So, the credit to Chuck Daly back in the day, because not a lot of coaches back then was willing to just turn their guys loose and just let them go like that. It worked out for them. So
Chuck Daly's about the only. Chuck Daly's about the only guy I can give any kind of respect to from that team, because you know what? Bill Laimbeer was an asshole. I can't stand any of them. They talked about with Michael Jordan. Do you still feel that same way today? And they said, hell yeah. You know what I mean? So to accept Dennis was a big thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. That whole Bad Boys team, there's bad blood between us and them to this day. You watch Isaiah Thomas get on and he's whining about being, like he was so ridiculed by Michael Jordan. And a lot of us Chicago folks, I was telling somebody this earlier, like if you follow, a lot of us Chicago people follow high school sports as well. And Isaiah Thomas was that same asshole at St. Joe's.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was telling my buddy, how do you think he ended up in Indiana with Bob Knight? Birds of a feather flock together. He was a dick from a kid. He went to Bob Knight and he came to the league. That's just who Isaiah Thomas was. And it just baffled me how everybody would fall for his story. He was just act like he was just so ridiculed, and Michael Jordan did him so wrong. And now people are starting to see the truth. What really happened, what really led to it.
And here's the thing. Thomas's excuse was, hey, you know what? The Celtics did it to us, because that was the way it went. The Pistons had to get over the Celtics, and the Bulls had to get over the Pistons, right? So they said, oh, yeah, when we finally beat the Celtics, they were out in the court walking off, and he had to stop Kevin McHale. You know what I mean? But still, Michael Jordan's point was, they beat us bad 2 years in a row, and he still gave them credit, shook their hand, dude. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And then we have all this talk about, Michael Jordan keeping Isaiah Thomas off the Dream Team. But a lot of people don't realize Isaiah Thomas kept Jordan off the All-Star game early in his career.
Right.
You know what I mean? So karma came back and bit him. I told somebody today, they say Isaiah Thomas shouldn't have been kept off the Dream Team. I told him, I said, karma kept him off the Dream Team.
Well, of course, Chuck Daly was coaching that team, so I got some of that respect from that point as well. All right. So we brought up earlier in our discussion the key impact of Dennis Rodman. I want to get this a little more detailed, Terry, from you, about when and this came from Phil Jackson, that Dennis was definitely the glue who held everything together when Scotty was out. How to the T accuracy is that from Phil Jackson that Dennis was definitely the main reason they held it together when Pippen was hurt?
He was right. I mean, Scotty was out, and we did have Tony Kukoc. We did have we had a young Scott Burrell. We had Steve Kerr. We had some really good players at the time, but nobody was willing to step up and fill that void that Scotty had left with his injury. And that's where Dennis Rodman came in. His experience, his charisma, his character. He kept those guys' spirits up as well, and they followed suit with him. Once he got with Michael Jordan and told him I wasn't gonna let him down. I know I'm screwing up and everything. Like, that's when everything changed. You know what I mean? And he started to show these guys on the court. These guys started to follow Rodman just like they started to follow Jordan. They started to bleed back in the day.
Right.
And so when it came to in Scotty's absence, then it stepped up tremendously. And like I said, he did a lot of things that didn't show up on the stat sheet. A lot of stuff that he did in the locker room and with guys personally, it didn't show up in the locker room. The way he outworked them in practice, he forced them to work hard in practice because everybody thought because he was a bad boy, he didn't work as hard in practice. He forced those guys. He forced Mike to work hard in practice.
Right.
Right. And he filled a huge void when Scottie Pippen was out, man. And people don't give him credit for being the great teammate that he was. You know what I mean? Exactly.
It was exactly. I mean, Phil literally put the exclamation point last night on how really critical it was for the Bulls to have Dennis Rodman at that particular point in time with Scottie Pippen being injured. You know what I mean? That was the exclamation point last night. So that's a fact, my friend, for sure. So based on that, we're gonna go. So now we go to the scene. Phil Jackson calls in Michael Jordan. He already has Rodman in his office, and Rodman wants to take a little vacation. Now we heard what MJ said. He may not come back, but if he goes to Vegas, you ain't gonna see him at all. So let's talk about first as we detail into the vacation, because we all know which direction that's gonna go. So I never heard anything that in my life, a player like that getting 48 hours or anything like that. So do you think MJ was pissed because he goes, if anybody needs a vacation, it would be me? You know what I mean? So do you think, I mean, that must have been a first for Phil Jackson to hear from a player or Michael Jordan. I mean, is that about right? Something like that?
I can't even believe they allowed that. But I figured I guess if they didn't, he probably would have pulled some type of stunt anyway. So I guess they negotiated with him and gave him 48 hours. I think 48 hours turned into a school week.
Yeah. To say the least.
Watching that, because that was literally the first I've heard of that. I mean, that was the first I've heard of it. And watching it live last night, it was like, I can't believe they let this dude go to Vegas, especially. You know what I mean?
Right.
Wow. That could have been.
Hey, you know what? To Rodman's credit, he was honest. He's like, I want to go to Vegas. He was honest about it. But I had never heard of that, even to this day, until he. I mean, that's the only time you ever heard of that, anything like that happening. A guy getting that just because he's like, I need a little vacation, man. You know what I mean? I just can't do it. I don't know, man.
A guy that wasn't the superstar. You know what I mean? You get
right.
Oh wow! That was pretty unbelievable watching, and it turned out exactly like I thought in my head it would.
Well, Michael definitely called it to the T too. All right, so
it was unbelievable too.
We're gonna go now. We're in Las Vegas. Obviously, we all know the 48 hours have passed, and we saw all the clips: partying, the toasting, the celebrities. The routine was his favorite restaurant, favorite nightclub, after party. All of a sudden, the GOAT has to go get him. MJ has to go get him in Vegas. And what's the situation? The knock is on the door. Carmen Electra knows who it is. She's gotta get under a bed sheet on the couch because she didn't want, her makeup wasn't right, her hair was all messed up. Not to mention she was probably naked. Here comes Jordan to drag him out of bed. Tell me about it, Terry. Tell me about it.
That reminded me of that scene from the Foul Heartbeats when they had to go get Eddie Kane out the hotel room. And he was listening to that. That was the first thing that came to my mind. He was probably laid up, hair was all messed up, and he probably didn't know what time of the day it was. They don't tell him what was on the floor and on the tables and stuff in that hotel room, man. Oh, geez.
You know what I mean? It's like, and I talked to a buddy, and he's like, you know what? He was really surprised. I talked to him today, and he goes, yeah, I was really surprised that Carmella Electra actually cared what she looked like. I don't know if she was, maybe because it was only Michael Jordan, but I don't think anybody else, when it came to the door from the Bulls, she would have been all scared what she looked like, considering everybody knew what, kind of girl she was too with him. I mean, you know what I mean? And among other people as well. But I think only because Jordan was there, she cared.
Man. Dennis was the man on and off the court, man. He used to,
Let's not forget about Madonna before her, too. You know what I mean? So,
I mean, Madonna helped him become who he was, helped him to accept who he was. And that's when he started to really become who he was. And we look at it as antics. You know what I mean? That's just us from the outside looking in and judging the person. You know what I mean? But that's who he was. That's who he is to this day.
Yeah, she brought out the best in him when she said to him, establish who you want to be. Don't be who they tell you. You should be who you are. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think she brought the best out of him, focusing wise. You know what I mean? So,
but it's one thing like a superstar like her caliber, especially during that time.
Who wanted him? She wanted Rodman.
And she could give two damns about what anybody thought about her. And for somebody who was similar to him to tell him like, hey man, you don't give a hell about what anybody got to say about you. Do you, be you. You know what I mean? And that was the perfect person to come and get him to come out of his shell and come in to be exactly who he was. We may not have liked it at the time, but it's not about what we like. It's about him being comfortable with who he was. You know what I mean? So,
right. Like he told Barbara Walters, you know what I mean? Because he felt like, who he was, 10 years old, and a kid and a man growing up to be happy inside, But that was a whole different story. He went from one level with Madonna to a whole different level with Carmen Electra, though. You know what I mean?
So look, Carmen Electra, Tony Braxton, man, man. I'm talking about jealous boy. He was running through him like a marathon, money.
Unbelievable. Only Rodman could pull off something like that, man, for sure.
For you. Sure. Absolutely. Oh man, it was just an incredible episode 3 and 4, man. It was just in depth, man. A lot of stuff that I didn't know about Dennis Rodman, I learned.
Me too.
You know what I mean? And it was that first episode, man, was just it had me sitting looking at the TV like this. It was a little bit of action.
It kept you going, like what's going to be next that you didn't know about. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Once you start hearing stuff about a guy like that you didn't know, you know what I mean? It just makes you want to know more, and it helps you understand exactly who Dennis was. Because, like you said, we was on the outside looking in. You really didn't know. And hearing his story come from him and people that was close to him, and seeing backstage footage, he was a great guy. He was giving away his shoes at the stadium. He was signing everything. He didn't leave no kid, without an autograph or a picture or something. He was the perfect gentleman in public. Despite what you thought about him in his private life, he was a great teammate. He was a great celebrity. You know what I mean? He was a really good guy.
Overall, he knew right from wrong. Not only on the court, but in real life in the end. I mean, so. Absolutely. All right, so now let's talk about the coaching change. Doug Collins gets released. He was happy with the decision when they brought in Phil Jackson. Mm-hmm. Michael Jordan, though, seemed to be the key importance of that switch there, because Doug Collins' strategy was let's give the ball to Michael always. You know what I mean? Whereas Phil Jackson tried making Michael realize that as an awesome player as he was, those situations where he needed help, he had the right people to help him out. In the beginning,
Exactly.
Michael was sour because, he was seeing his points not go as high because he didn't have the ball all the time. But in the end, he realized the bigger picture. I mean, how long do you think it took Michael to adapt that and really understand that whole situation? Because it seemed like he didn't like it for a while.
Well, I mean, being that you was known for just winning scorers titles and not winning championships, eventually, it eventually take a toll on him. You know what I mean? And when he first came in the league, I mean, he was automatically the leader of the team. I think they said about 2 weeks into the season, he was the leader of the team, and he was just used to having the ball in his hand. But everybody knows that's never good enough. No person win by himself.
Right.
And what's the surrounding you with these pieces, the Scottie Pippens, the John Paxsons, the Horace Grant, the Bill Cartwrights, if you're not going to trust your teammates to help you get over the top, So it was just a maturation process for him. He was already grown as a child. We watched him grow up. He was grown as a child, but he still had a little bit more growing up to do. It was just a maturation process. He had to go through some tough times, and then he had to have that revelation, within himself, like, look, I got to trust my teammates, and I have to evolve with this game if I want to get over the hump. He did. And here we are 6 rings later.
6 rings later. Right. Absolutely.
It's just a maturation process. That's all. We all have to mature when it comes sport-wise. That's in any sport. You have to mature. You have to evolve. Yeah, he did it quickly.
Back on Doug Collins real quick before we move on, since we brought him up, how much credit do you give Doug Collins for building up that team where only 2 years later they would become world champions? I give him a lot of credit. I think Doug Collins did a great job evolving that team to before Phil Jackson took over. And Doug was happy with that. Don't forget, Phil was an assistant to Doug. And I think Doug Collins did a great job, though, overall as a head coach. I mean, building up that, putting the mold together for Phil Jackson to take over.
If you look at the clip, if you look at the interview with Doug Collins, it strongly shows that he was grooming Phil to take over in the first place. You can hear it in what the words he was saying. He knew he wasn't going to be in Chicago long. He groomed Phil Jackson. He groomed that team for Phil Jackson eventually to take over. He kind of said it in his interview. I think he had to.
Remember what they said. It took a lot of balls to fire the guy who brought you to the Eastern Conference Championship for the first time. I mean, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And then you got a scoring title winner. You got Defensive Player of the Year. You have MVP of the league. All within 2 to 3 years.
Doug Collins' regime. I think he did a great job. I think he was definitely setting up the blueprints for what was going to become the 6 rings ahead of time. I mean, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm happy to have Doug now. Doug is in the office with us now. He's working with the new team. I was happy they brought him back.
I like to have him on the court, though, coaching again.
When Doug Collins first came back to the Bulls, and I knew he was going to help us out with this rebuild, first thing he said was, I'm going to get a first-round pick for Niko Mirotic. And people laughed at us when he said that. Guess what he got? He got a first-round pick for Niko Mirotic, and we ended up with 2 first-round picks that year. And then, you end up with guys like Kobe White and stuff like that now. So that's Doug Collins. A lot of people want to talk about what was the moves that was made with the Bulls now, but Doug Collins is the one behind the scenes that's getting this done. So he was great then. I'm happy to have him now, man.
I think he's awesome. I always like Doug Collins, but I want to make sure that he has the credit he deserves for setting up the blueprints of what became the championship dynasty of the Chicago Bulls. He was the first step to do that, I think.
I will absolutely say nothing Doug Collins did back then went unnoticed. Back then in the early 90s, we all knew that this was Doug Collins' team, and they gave it to Phil Jackson. We said that. What we said in Chicago.
That's the way it's got to go. Phil definitely did. Phil definitely gave a lot as well. But like I said, the blueprints and the mentality of saying, hey, I think, like you said, Doug knew what he had to do to hand it over to Phil, and he went above and beyond. For the short time he was here, 3 seasons, he really pulled it to the top, Doug Collins, for Phil Jackson to take over.
Everything Doug Collins did in his short tenure as head coach did not go unnoticed for Chicago. And if you talk to any diehard, authentic Bulls fan today, they will let you know that Doug Collins built that team up for Phil Jackson to take it to the next level. So Bill Collins never went underappreciated for what he did for us back in the late '80s to get us to where we are. Bill Collins never went appreciated, never. And that's why, like I said, we're happy to have him back now, man. I'm looking forward to see what he's going to do for us in the near future.
So. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. All right, then. So now, Phil Jackson, let's talk about him. He won an NBA World Championship with the Knicks, went to Puerto Rico, won the CBA championship. Let's talk about when he won that championship.
First of all, I don't know.
Almost got shot, too. He almost got shot. Remember that?
That's what I was about to say. Didn't they say that the mayor shot at him and ended up shooting the referee? What?
And Puerto Rico, man. Puerto Rico. Watching that clip reminded me of the World Wrestling Council, dude. All you were missing was Abdullah the Butcher and Carlos Colon, dude. You know what I mean?
I tell you, I mean, they say Puerto Ricans don't play, man. You know, my head coach is a Puerto Rican, so I can say that for sure. My head coach on the mats, man, he don't fuck around. You know, he kick your ass himself if he catches a slacking on the mat.
All my wrestling fans out there, you saw that clip of the basketball league. All you were shout out to Steve Colon. All you were missing was a ring and Abdullah the Butcher over there, man, at those basketball games, man. It got crazy. Because they even said they would throw rocks at you, dude, what they did to the bench, the this and that. But it was wild in Puerto Rico for anything, it seemed like. Any sport.
He's standing on the court arguing with the ref, clashing his hippie hands on the hips and yelling. And oh, my goodness, you know.
Let's go back before that, though. I mean, you know, were you surprised he took acid when he won the title? I wasn't surprised because look at the way he is. You know, he's one with the earth. He's all about that inner mantra, you know, your soul and everything else. Took the acid. He thought he was a lion up and down the beach, man. Sounds like a good time to me. But I mean, I think though that was part of who he was, like real down to earth reality person. The NBA's Doc Ellis, man. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know, Phil was, you know, I guess you could say weird. You know what I'm saying? I guess.
For those of you who don't know, Doc Ellis threw a perfect game on acid. So.
Phil Jackson was one of those. You know, a lot of the things that he did back in the day contributed to who he is now. You know, and contributed how he was able to connect with the players.
He was always one wanting to bring everybody. He was always a peaceful guy, man, until you pissed him off. You know what I mean? And it took a lot to piss him off, too. You know what I'm saying?
You get lost in that sauce, boy, to mellow you out and have you feeling real good. I think that's what helped him out, man. You know, he probably, you know, smoked a little bit of weed every day before he even had.
Well, look at the way he was raised, man. You know, you saw his upbringing and everything else, and coming from where he came from. I mean, he was just one with himself, and he, you know, make love, not war. You know what I mean? Type of person, man.
Yeah. And at the same time, like I said, you know, you laugh at it now. You know what I'm saying? You laugh at it now. You look at the influence that he had on everybody. Not only Dennis Rodman, he had
how about Steve Kerr too?
Yeah, he had a huge influence on Steve Kerr. You know, we all know Steve Kerr like the Chronic.
God bless him,
he out to the West Coast. I mean, he had an influence. He had a great relationship with the team, but he also had a great personal relationship with every individual. You know what I mean? And that's what anybody who played on those Bull teams would tell you. Our personal relationship with Phil Jackson was different from the team's relationship. So when you got a person who can relate to every single individual, the personalities, the wants, the needs, and you can listen to them and you can help them.
Terry. Sorry, fans, we're having some technical difficulties on Terry's on there from Indiana. Are you back? There he is. He's back. He's back.
You know, so you never know. You know what I mean? Like Phil Jackson was a great mastermind when it comes to the players, and you know, a coach has to be relatable to his players, and that's in any sport. That's very important. You know what I mean? Because
you saw how they were warming up. None of those guys ever did yoga or anything like that, man, or Buddhism. You know what I mean? And those guys accepted it because it was unifying the team together. You know?
goes to show you, you know what I mean? Like, players only go so far as their coach. You know what I mean? And you're not when you're running a team and stuff like that, you're not just the coach, you're the counselor. You know what I'm saying? You're the listening ear, your advice when they need it. You know what I mean? And that's the markings of a great coach. And that's not in basketball, that's just in football, that's in baseball, any sport where any athlete gets successful, they'll let you know their coach has been everything and was above and beyond for them. You know what I mean? And when you got a coach like that, you know what I mean, you can't help but to excel, especially when they allow you to be you. You know, like I said, I talked about my coach. He allowed me to be me. You know, he told me when I first walked to the gym, he goes, "Look, I know who you are. I'm not gonna change your style. You know, I'm gonna help you be the best at the style that you are. Only thing I want you to do is be a better fighter, and I want you to win." You know what I'm saying? You're gonna come to practice and you're gonna hate me, but you will win. You know, and that connection right there was what helped me get over the top. And I wanted to work hard for him, and I always gave it 100% in practice because I believed in what he told me. You know what I mean? And it turned out to be a beautiful thing. He helped me excel in my career. So whatever sport you're in, you only go so far as your coach. You know what I mean? So,
Right. So let's go back to where the Hioka. Remember that we were talking about Phil Jackson, the way he was raised. He straight up. He said, he loved Rodman because he was real. So he compared him to the Hioka of the tribe. When he walked in the office and they noticed all the Indian things he had, and American Indian emblems, and Dennis Rodman had the same chain, and Phil Jackson says, "You're the man who walks backwards." Meaning that he was real with himself and everybody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Phil appreciated Dennis Rodman more than anybody that has ever worked with him. And I think Dennis Rodman knew that. And I think that's what made him want to work even harder for him. He did that with everybody, but especially with Dennis. People was writing him off. You got to, like I said, you got to think about it. He was traded for Will Perdue. Nobody was really checking for Dennis Rodman. They didn't want to deal with him. Then you get here in Chicago, and he let him know first meeting he had with him. Hey, Dennis, you stand up, you shake my hand, and you talk to him. You introduce yourself. And like you said, he went out and he had a talk with him, and he was sold after that. So right off the bat, he got Dennis's attention. You know what I'm saying? And he set up boundaries. He allowed him to be him, and he was able to work with him. And so like I said, great players only go so far as their coach.
It seems like it was meant to be based on him listening to Phil Jackson right away.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Why do you think it is that Phil Jackson could have handled Dennis Rodman the way he did when Popovich couldn't in San Antonio? What do you think was the key ingredient there about Phil Jackson that related himself more to Dennis Rodman than Popovich did in San Antonio?
I'm not sure if it was more about Pop or it was more about the San Antonio players. You know what I mean? Because you got to remember at the time he started wearing dresses and he was pulling all these antics down in San Antonio. And I think the players didn't want to deal with him. And it was somewhat of the coach. I think it was more of the players didn't know how to handle him and didn't want to work with him. But at the same time, like I said, he was down there helping David Robinson win Defensive Player of the Year and MVP.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was still contributing. But at the same time, they didn't want they felt like they felt like his talent wasn't worth the trouble that he brought with the team.
Right. Right.
They wasn't winning. They wasn't winning. They were competing, but they wasn't winning.
I think, it was a rush situation, based on everything that happened, with Rodman going to the Palace and having the shotgun there and being in the bad spot in his life at that time and everybody making sure he was okay, 4 a.m, working out, and then getting traded. I just think, I think he felt like he was just getting dumped from one thing to the other. And where I don't think he even wanted to go to San Antonio. I think he just want to stay in the league. And like we brought up before, going to the Bulls brought up the way he felt when he was a bad boy. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the difference between going to a team to play, going to a team to win. You got to understand, Dennis Rodman was used to winning. You know what I mean? He was used to winning. He won a championship 2 years in the league.
I think he was a bad, but I think he had to have been at some kind of a bad point in his life. the Detroit was winding down. It was 93, right? He gets traded to San Antonio, and he just couldn't fit in there. I don't think he was mentally there anyway, though. I don't think he wanted to be there, period, or mentally prepared to be there. You know what I mean? I just think the impression took him over there. You know what I mean? My opinion.
He didn't want to be there. They wasn't building to win at the time. You know what I mean? And like I said, he was used to winning. So he saw that opportunity to come to Chicago to win. To win. To play with Michael Jordan, to play with Scottie Pippen, play with Tony Kukoc. Who they had down in San Antonio? I think they had David Robinson at the time. I think they had Sean Elliott.
Elliott was down there, yeah.
That's it. They wasn't built to win anything.
That was about it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
He was just down there. And you play to the level of your competition. The same thing when it goes to your teammates. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like that with your teammates. If your teammates aren't elevating you to get to where you want to be, if they're not trying to get to where you want to be, you'll kind of like get stuck in that. So what do you do when I'm not winning? Hell, I'm just here. Let me just act the fool. And that's what he did. So once he got to a situation where you got an opportunity to win again, and all this negativity coming behind you, he was sold. Oh yeah, they had Doc Rivers as well. Avery Johnson.
In San Antonio. Right.
They had an okay team.
Vinny Del Negro was good too. Yeah, absolutely.
They had an okay team, but they didn't win anything until the lockout season.
Right. They're the lockout champions. Right.
Yeah.
They are the lockout champions.
They're lockout champions. They beat Spreewell and them. During their lockout season. So they didn't.
Do you think they didn't accept him? I mean, obviously the stars were aligned for Dennis because people hear the players I'm talking about accepted him for what he was and what he could be. Do you think a lot of players didn't want him on the team down there in San Antonio?
Well, I know they got him for a steal. Dennis Rodman was traded twice for pretty much Skittles. You know what I mean? When he first got traded to San Antonio, he got traded for 2 players. Do you know the 2 players? I know I don't. I know he got traded for 2 players. So he got traded for 2 players, you know what I mean? And then he get traded to Chicago for Will Perdue. You know what I mean? So that goes with your mental. You know what I mean? It's like, they got traded for 2 bum players. He got traded for another bum player. He got traded to an okay team. You know what I mean? They wasn't competing for anything. It was Chicago, Utah, Houston. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe Indiana. I think the Pacers. He was competing on an okay team.
Right.
He wasn't going to win anything in San Antonio. So I mean, like I said, what else is there to do but lash out, and that's what he did,
Right. So based on that, obviously, you didn't have the same team chemistry. Before we get back to Detroit, let's talk about the shot.
Oh, which one?
We're going to talk
with MJ.
We're going to talk about in Cleveland, Michael Jordan.
Oh, the first one.
Tell us about how that one shot was it happened, it was magic, but how big of a motivator was that for MJ and the entire Bulls team to take place throughout the years? I mean, they always talked about that shot after it happened. How big of a motivator was that for them while they were winning? They always talked about, hey, we could do it. We did it back then. We could do it now. I mean, I think the shot was a big stepping stone to keep them motivated all those seasons that they were winning.
Well, everybody was talking about Detroit, you know what I mean? But at the same time, nobody was still talking about Chicago. They was talking about Cleveland, who was really good at the time, by the way. They had Mark Price. They had Larry Nance. They had Brad Daugherty. They had a stacked team. Craig Elo, Ron Harper. They had a squad, man. And yeah, exactly. Hot Rod Williams. They had a fucking team, man. And Cleveland was the second favorite, you know what I'm saying, to come out of the East beside Detroit that year. So people don't realize that they climbed a huge hurdle in beating Cleveland before they even got to Detroit. You know what I mean? And,
right.
And Cleveland gave them a series, man. Ron Harper, people understand how much of a defensive specialist Ron Harper was back then. He gave Michael Jordan problems, man.
He was his, yeah.
He put the clamps on them. And, everybody picked Cleveland to win. Everybody picked Cleveland to win that series. And it was funny how they told the story, how, one reporter had them winning,
Michael
2 out of 3
Jordan
out of 5. Yeah. Taking care of you. We're taking care of you. Tonight we're going to take care of you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And at
To
the
the
end of the
Chicago
game,
reporters, yeah.
Ron Harper, because I watched that actual game, I want to say about maybe a month ago. I watched that actual game. Jordan had a lot of points, but Ron Harper played him so well that game. And for them to put Craig Elo on Michael Jordan at the end of the game when you want your best defensive player on him at that time, you know, it was just, oh, man, you setting yourself up for failure, man. And then, you know, Michael Jordan hit that shot, you know, and it was
You can't
just,
make stuff like that. Hollywood can't even make up a movie like that, man, you know?
oh, man. Oh, it was just, that was the beginning. That was the beginning right there, the evolution of Michael Jordan. Not just
and once again, we talk about Doug Collins being the head coach when that happened as well. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely, you
so
know,
based
he
on
got
that,
the ball in his hands.
Absolutely. So now we're gonna get back to Detroit. Okay, let's get there. Let's talk about it. So 2 years, man. 2 years the Bulls suffered, man. I mean, took a beating from the Pistons in the conference finals 2 years in a row. How much? I mean, it was stated the rivalry became legendary with the Bad Boys and the Bulls. How much do you think, though, really, personally? I mean, it was said a lot. They still hate him to this day. But it had to take a toll on them, losing 2 years in a row to somebody you hate like that. I mean, you know what I mean? What do you think was the biggest motivator? Besides knowing they had to beat him eventually, what do you think really kept them? We saw after the second time. Now, you remember when they lost the second time? That summer, nobody took that summer off. Michael Jordan started working out. They all worked out with Michael. It was a different summer after losing 2 years in a row to the conference finals to the Pistons. Talk to me about that. And do you obviously that was the final straw, losing 2 years in a row to a team. Did you really? I mean, I think they all thought they could beat them. Did you think, though, they all realized we have to do it this year? If we can't do it this year, we're not going to do it.
Well, maybe a lot of people don't understand that Michael Jordan, I always talk about how he revolutionized the game. Michael Jordan started coming into camp in shape. Guys used to come back at the start of preseason, they'll be fat, and they'll be out of shape, and they'll get in shape as the season go along. Like you said, Michael Jordan started that. We're not taking the summer off. We're going to get in the gym in the summertime. We're going to
that was after losing 2 years in a row. Exactly. Now, of course, though, you brought up MJ personally. He wanted to be in the same category because he was on that route to be included in the same sentence with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was another thing that bit at him personally, wanting to be in that same category.
But at the same time, but at the same time, you know, he had the mentality that, you know, if my guy's doing 10 push-ups, I'm going to do 20. There's no way they're going to outwork me. You know what I mean? He took no days off. He was always in the gym. He was the first person in the gym. He was the last person to leave. You know what I mean? And it trickled down to his teammates, and everybody evolved. And they figured out that Detroit was just bullying them. And they was that annoying little brother between the Bad Boy Pistons, and they had to get over the hump. You know?
And saying on that, you know, Isaiah Thomas's comment, we weren't just invited to the party, we crashed the party. So being back-to-back world champions like that, they definitely, I mean, they're the only team. They remind me of the Broad Street Bullies of the 70s for Philadelphia Flyers in hockey. They were the roughest, toughest, most penalty-minute team in the NHL. In any other sport, the Pistons are compared to them. I mean, so they bragged about it, that they wanted to be known they were badasses. You know what I mean?
Well, they let it known. They said they didn't call themselves the Bad Boys. Everybody else called themselves the Bad Boys. They just embraced it. You know what I mean? You have to understand the game was different back then. You were able to go out there and foul the shit out of somebody and not get a flavoring call. You know
how did you feel hearing John Sally saying Isaiah Thomas telling him, don't just get a cheap foul. That's stupid. Foul somebody on purpose and do it right. Trying to hurt them, basically.
You know what? I mean, you know what? I'm not even mad at that. It makes sense. Hey, we used to play like that on the street. You know, in Chicago, we say no blood, no foul.
Right.
You know what I mean? So hearing that, it's not a big deal. You know, and my thing is this: I wouldn't, you know, if you're gonna foul them, send them to the free throw line. They got to make both shots instead of giving them a free ride. So he's just speaking how basketball was back then. He wasn't particularly talking about the Bulls because they did that to everybody. They did it to Dominique down in Atlanta. You know
Right.
what I mean? They did
Right.
it to Larry Bird. The
Right.
Pistons and the Celtics fought every time they played each other. So it was that's just how the game was played back then. The
They got
referees
away. They got
referees
away.
didn't baby the superstars. Referee didn't baby the superstars. You know, you got fouled, get your ass up, and you go to the bench. You know, so it's a different time. It's a different game. It's a lot tougher.
They got away with a lot, man. They did get away with a lot. Them bad boys. They got away
Oh
with a
yeah,
lot. A lot.
everybody though, everybody. You know, the game was just hard back then. You look at old footage, man. It was just, you had to be tough to play in the NBA, man. It wasn't a finesse game like it is now. Guys flopping and everything. I mean, you would go in the air and get clothesline out of the air, man. And you would have to suck it up and get up and shoot the 2 free throws and go back down court and get on defense. Now guys are getting 2-3 shots in flagrants and not even getting touched. It's unbelievable.
Right. Right. So based on that, we fast forward now to we beat them. Okay, let's talk about that. We beat them finally. Okay. Not only did we beat them, but the revenge factor was that we swept them.
They didn't stand a chance.
We
Like I
swept
said,
them.
once that mentality caught up with the talent, because everybody, only person had the mentality was Jordan. Once everybody got that same mentality as Jordan, Detroit didn't stand a chance.
And John Selly even said that. I think the key factor was we're talking about all this stuff that the bad boys. The Bulls finally realized, don't complain, don't bitch and moan about getting fouled, this and that. Don't even ask for a Band-Aid. John Selly even said when they realized they weren't mentally getting to them anymore, he even said that Detroit knew they were done.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And that's with once again, it goes with any sport. You know what I mean? Once you can mentally get there, once you get that mental to catch up with that talent, it's just over. You know what I mean? And the Bulls, like I said, they knew what they had to do. They worked hard in that off season, and they worked on themselves mentally. And they knew they were just bullying them around. They were just pushing them around. They wasn't even trying to stop Michael Jordan from scoring. They were just beating them up. You know what I mean? And what they did, they got bigger. They got stronger. They worked on each other. They worked on their mentality. They went out and they said, okay, we're going to take care of business this time. And it was 4-0. You know what I mean?
That was it. 2 years of frustration built up. Exactly. 2 years of frustration built up to them sweeping them at the Palace on top of it. You know what I mean?
They were bad. They were better than them the second year they lost to them in '90. I actually feel that Bulls team was better than them then, but they got the best of them mentally in game 6.
That was the key thing they had to realize. Besides working out, they didn't take the summer off. Was the mental factor? And all right. So based on that,
90, man.
Based on that, the Bulls are steamrolling now to the finals, and everybody's talking about the dream matchup, the one they all wanted to see: Magic versus Air Jordan, man. So this whole thing, okay. Isaiah Thomas had said their time was done for the Pistons. The Bulls was just starting. Do you think people were starting to feel that way about the Lakers, the Bulls going in as heavy favorites there? Do you think the changing of the guard was coming based on what was happening with the Bulls and the whole new face of the NBA?
I don't personally feel that way because a lot of people want to say that, but what they don't understand is that the average age of that Lakers team in '91 when they played Chicago was 28 years old. You know what I mean? Magic Johnson was 30. You know what I mean?
But they did a lot quick, though. They did a lot. I mean, Magic Johnson already had 5 NBA titles, right? He had 5 already.
He won early. He didn't win late, and that's why people think that the team was a lot older than what they were. They were only average of 28 years old. Magic Johnson was 30, getting ready to turn 31.
He already had 5 titles at that point.
Right. Like I said, he won early. So to sit up here and say that Jordan beat the Lakers because they were done, this and that, it's not true. It's just simply not true. It was Jordan versus Magic. It was a great matchup. You know what I mean? The passing of the torch was the passing torch up from one great player to another. It wasn't that I'm done and it's your time now. It's I'm realizing that you're the superstar of the league. You're the face of the league. You're the future of the league. You know what I mean? I won early. I had my time. It's your time now. It wasn't a passing of the
And you
torch
know
as
what
if
was great? It was
I
it was it
that.
was the hug that they had when it was all over. The Bulls beat the Lakers. Magic Johnson hugging Michael Jordan, and he was happy for him. He was, he says, if I'm going to lose to anybody, he was happy it was him because he knew the Bulls and Jordan worked hard for it. They deserved it. You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. It goes to show Magic has always been that. He's like that to this day. You know what I mean? And he knew,
Absolutely.
like I say, he had his time, whether it was in college and it
It,
was up
it,
to the
it,
league.
it was even cool when Jack Nicholson went up. The actor went up to uh, Phil Jackson too. If you saw that clip, Jack Nicholson went
Yeah,
up to Phil Jackson and congratulated him too. And we all know how big of a fan he is. Always at courtside in Los Angeles.
yeah. Like I said, the Lakers, they were good overall. James Worthy is the next college teammate of Michael Jordan. They were happy for him. They knew he was the future of the league. That's what it was. He wasn't old like everybody think they were. You know what I mean? It was a great matchup. Two great teams, the monsters of the East and the monsters of the West. Wolves prevailed. Magic Johnson passed that superstar road torch over to Michael Jordan. It wasn't I was done. Magic played a lot of years after that 91 championship. You know what I'm saying? So to sit up here and say that they were done, that's not true. That average age was 28 years old for the Lakers. It was 27 years old for the Bulls. They pretty much had the same exact age players on the team. So people can miss me with that argument that the Lakers was old. It was a great matchup. Jordan was just crowned king at that time, and Magic passed that superstar torch on to him. Larry Bird was already done. You know what I'm saying? Magic Johnson, he let him know, hey, it's your time now. It's your time
Right.
now. Go ahead.
Right. And
Go.
and, and, and and what a time it was for Michael Jordan surpassing him eventually by winning one more championship than Magic did in the end. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so absolutely. All right. So now we're all celebrating about this. Let's um let's fast forward now to our last part here of this segment here we're talking about for this week. Let's talk about the whole there's the iconic. Let's talk about first though when he first won that championship though. Before we fast forward to the last championship run, Michael Jordan holding the O'Brien Trophy, with crying and with his father uh, right next to him as well. I mean, that's a vision that no Chicago fan will ever forget. Absolutely, huh?
Yeah, like I said, he was finally known as a world champion, not just a scoring champion. He won the dunk contest. He won Defensive Player of the Year. He's won scoring titles. He's never gotten over the hump. You know what I mean? People are finally starting to realize what he had to endure to get that first championship. He didn't go take his talents anywhere to join anybody. He didn't get nobody to come play with him. He lost his protector, his right hand man in Charles Oakley with a guy he didn't want, as in Bill Cartwright. He made it work. You know what I mean? He endured 2 years of just physical, brutal. They wasn't trying to stop him. They just wanted to just beat him up. He had to get over the Larry Bird hump. He had to get over the Pistons hump, the Cleveland hump, the Magic Johnson hump. People now finally starting to realize what Michael had to endure to get to where he were. And if you're not a real authentic Bulls fan, you're now finally starting to appreciate the greatness. People can watch all the film they want on Michael Jordan and on those Bulls, but we were blessed and fortunate enough to actually see it live, and a lot of people was, and that's how you're able to appreciate the greatness that's Michael Jordan and those championship Bulls team, because we saw the hurdles that they had to jump, what they had to get through. So I mean, you look at that picture, and it's just like he did it. You know what I mean? It was well deserved. It was well earned. Just that season alone, who he had to beat. You know what I mean? And it just goes to show you that was the evolution of Michael Jordan.
Right.
Once he got that first taste, he wanted to eat, man, and he ate the entire decade of the '90s, and nobody else ate on his watch.
Right. It was like you said, evolution. It was like the food chain. The Lakers were done, the Celtics were done, and in the East, the Pistons had to get over and over that beating the Celtics hump. And then once the Bulls did it to the Pistons, it was no looking back. There was no competition for them, man. You know what I mean? In the Eastern Conference
Absolutely,
or overall NBA. So now let's get to
absolutely.
that last part here. Before we finish up, because it's really critical. Let's fast forward to um, let's fast forward to the whole Jerry Krause situation. Okay, let's fast forward to that. And now we're at our last season here. Jerry Krause is insistent in the middle of a big championship last season run, okay, in the newspapers, talking to the press, reminding everybody this is the last year of Phil Jackson, trying to take the focus on what they're doing. It seemed like he wanted to keep it on him and his front office shenanigans. So I call it shenanigans because nobody in their right mind would want to create negative energy the way the Bulls were steamrolling then once they got things going in that last season. You know what I mean? They had a rough start in the beginning, but then all of it came together when Pip came back and Rodman was there. But yet you have Jerry Krause reminding everybody that this is going to be Phil Jackson's last season in the newspapers, and everybody's giving Michael Jordan a hard time wanting to know what he wanted to do after that season. Jordan kept saying it over and over. I just want to win. Let's just focus on now. Tell me about that. Tell me about what you think. I think Jerry Krause was out of line trying to steal the focus on that. He didn't have to keep bringing up the Phil Jackson situation. And I felt bad for Michael because it was the same question over and over and over again. That final season, they won the title, what he was planning on doing in the future. Jordan just wanted to focus for right then and there. You know what I mean?
Jerry Krause and his short man syndrome got the best of him. Short man syndrome is pettiness, whatever. He felt like he wasn't getting enough credit. Yeah, BS. You know what I mean? You're trying to break up the greatest team in sports history. We talk about this all the time. They wasn't the greatest team in basketball. They was the greatest team in football, everything. They was the greatest team at that time in period. And you're trying to break it up over your ego. And that's why even in depth, it's unfortunately he's not here with us today, but, even in depth, people know how much of an asshole he was. You know what I mean? All because of your personal feelings, because you wanted credit. And if you would have just shut your mouth, you would have gotten the credit that you deserve. People would have said, Krause put this team together. You know what I mean? So, but he let his ego get the best.
What did you think about Jerry Krause dancing after that first championship? They were all getting. Let's rewind to the first one. He's on the plane. Jerry Krause is getting down, man, with Scottie Pippen dancing on that plane.
It's just awful, man. Look at that. Oh, geez.
He told him to go sit back down, but they were having a good time after they finally won. I think at one point there. I want to believe at one point they were all chummy until later on. You know what I mean? I think it was a work in progress for the negativity towards Jerry Krause and what he put out there after that first championship.
Look like Scotty was out there doing the Ray Shrummer dance before Ray Shrummer came out. Y'all caught that? Scotty invented that first.
Absolutely.
But I mean, at the same time, like I say, Krause, ego, man. It was these old farts, man. That's what I call them. Him and Reinsdorf, didn't want to involve with the sports, man. They were just old and stuck in their ways, man. And he just wanted to let everybody know that he was in charge, man. And to this day, it baffles me. I don't understand how big of an asshole you had to be to want to break up a dynasty like that. Nobody got a chance to dethrone them. They should
nobody. And you're accurate on that. Nobody.
They should have lost their title to somebody and then walked off into the sunset.
Like the Lakers did, like the Celtics did, and like the Pistons did.
Everybody did.
Exactly.
Everybody did.
Exactly.
So you want to flex his muscle, built like that.
So that's how it ended. Episode 4 ended with Jerry Krause and the newspapers still reminding everybody, despite how much of on a roll they were and how much they were on the right track to win the 6th championship, Jerry Krause was insistent to let everybody know that this was Phil Jackson's last year. So that's how it ended up leaving off there. And I think it's going to be...
Scotty came back. The Bulls were gelling. You know what I mean? The attention was back on Chicago, and he just wanted to have his name being spoken. And that's all it was. I think they were 36-12 at the All-Star break or something like that. Man, they were rocking and rolling.
They were definitely coming back strong after the slow start they had that season.
Rocking and rolling. I think they either went to Sacramento or Utah, and he made that statement. They got their ass kicked right before the All-Star break. You know what I mean? Is he just once it was about the coaches and the players? It's like I said, it was his little bruised little ego. And we always gave him props for putting that team together. We gave him props for bringing Scotty and Horace Grant in at the same time. You know what I mean? We gave him props for trading Oakley and bringing in Bill Cartwright and making them work. We gave him props, man. It was his ego. He had an ego problem. It costed him.
Yeah, I really couldn't see how somebody could have been enjoying wanting to take away from what was going on the court and how the important impact it was to want to focus on him and reminding everybody that he pulled the strings in the office there and wanting to get rid of Phil Jackson. Like he was set on that, and that's all he wanted to focus about.
Exactly. The greatest team of all time didn't get to run it back. The Yankees, the '98 Yankees. Who you could think about it in baseball? I can't think. I was researching this earlier. We had the '98 Yankees. Didn't get a chance to run it back. Just a number of teams that you can think of that didn't get a chance to do that. And like I said, it was unfortunate with the Bulls. To beat a man, you have to beat the man. The Lakers beat the Celtics. The Pistons beat the Lakers. I mean, the Pistons beat the Celtics.
How about in hockey, the 1977 Montreal Canadiens, even the Bears. Look at what the Bears did. I mean, the Bears. Everybody still talks about that, even when they did their 30 for 30 documentary. They could have won more. They all said it.
Yes.
They all said it.
I mean, so it's just unreal, man. Those guys should have been able to lose on their own time. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, those guys should be able to lose on their own time and then walk off. All those teams got to run it back.
They got to run it, yeah.
They all got to run it back. The Bulls didn't get to run it back. You know what I mean? And that's why we're having those debates right now. This team had beaten them. Would this team would have beaten them? How would they fare against this team? And it's unfortunate that we'll never know because they broke this team up. You know what I mean? Who knows what would have happened with those 99 Spurs and the 99 potential Bulls? You know what I mean? Or how would they fared against the Eastern Conference champs, eventually those New York Knicks with Latrell Sprewell and Charlie Ward. They had a great team. You know what I mean? We don't know how they would have fared with those guys because they broke their team up, man. They didn't get a chance to run it back. It's unfortunate.
All right. So based on that, guys, and we're all looking forward to obviously episodes 5 and 6 on this awesome ESPN Netflix documentary.
Oh man, I'm happy they moved this up, man. We're going through this unfortunate time. Everything we're going through confusing times right now.
Right.
And we're all at home
because it was supposed to air in June. It was supposed to air in June.
We're trying to maintain our sanity and still be human and be humane and they killed sports and here come the GOAT, come save the day for us again.
Absolutely.
Got us talking about sports
and he's
again,
still
man.
himself. He's still himself, dude. After all these years, talking the way he talks.
I'm watching him, right, and I look over at my wife, and I'm like, damn, I used to wear hoop earrings and shit too, back in the day. And she was like, look, he still got one in. He's still wearing the hoop earrings.
He's still himself.
Oh my goodness, man! He got his stick out right there beside him, man.
I like how they show them. Oh, okay. Here's what Michael had to say about that, and they give everybody the tablet. You know what I mean? They give Phil Jackson the tablet, and they give Rodman the tablet and Pippen the tablet, and they all remember the stories, and they're all laughing and everything else, man.
Man,
that hoop is probably worth more than what we make a year, dude. You know what I mean? Today.
I walk around and fake it till I make it, man. I just want to look just like it and lie and tell everybody costs the same.
Unbelievable.
It's just like people are finally now, like I said, a lot of people, what's great about this right now, even though we're only 4 episodes in, you got a lot of people who was only born in 96 and 97 and 98, and all they know is LeBron James. You know what I mean? So now they're starting to see that, wow, Michael Jordan was great. Like, This is what he did. This is what he's overcome. So this is what this documentary is doing, because there's a lot of people who was born either towards the end of this dynasty or after this dynasty.
And
And they're
my nephew's one of them. My nephew was going to be 25 this August. He was born in '95, and then the Bulls won 3 more after that. And I mean, he loves basketball to this day, and he watches. He loves learning and watching all about the good old days of the championship dynasty of the Bulls, man. But also, not only what you said, a lot of people who were born in that time frame grew up learning about him as they got older. But it takes back all of us back to what I was in high school. I mean, I was a freshman, and I the first championship I was in 8th grade when they won. And throughout high school and after a couple years after high school, they were winning. You know what I mean? So it brought back a lot of awesome nostalgia to everybody.
Yeah, because a lot of people today, they see Michael Jordan, especially the younger kids. They say, "Oh, it took Michael Jordan 8 years to win a ring. He couldn't win a ring." Okay, but now they're starting to see why.
Right.
Whoa, they beat his ass for 3 straight years, and they wasn't getting flagrant fouls. They were clotheslining him out the air. He had to go through this. He had to go through that. They think he was just going 6, 7, 8 years in the league and not winning. You know what I mean? And they saw that he didn't go join another team, but he didn't put his team together. He worked with the guys he got. He challenged them to elevate their game, and that's the difference between the game at that time and the game now. You know what I mean? Now it's all about the big three. Every single great team today has a big three. And back then you played with who you got, man. You know what I mean? They all wanted to beat each other. None of those guys never wanted to join each other and win. They didn't join each other until '92, until they formed the Dream Team when they got those guys together.
Right.
But other than that, they wanted to play against each other. And Mike had to work. People don't understand what he endured, and now they got to see his work ethic and what he brought to the game. You know how cool he was back then, wearing gold chains, and he started to lose shorts. The shorts were smaller back then. He come in the league.
He started the trends, man. On the golf course too, he looked sharper than ever, man. Not even playing golf, man. He was looking sharp.
He started this trend, man. He started this culture. You know what I'm saying? He revolutionized the games on so many levels. Like I said, he started guys coming into camp in shape. You know what I mean? Coming to camp in shape. You know what I mean? And the mentality. Everybody wanted to be like Mike. Everybody wanted to be like Mike. You know what I mean? You got to the point you hear stories with other players how they was. They got to the point they were scared to trash talk them because they didn't want to drop 60 on them.
Right.
I'm not gonna talk trash to Michael Jordan because he's not gonna drop 50 on me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm gonna leave him alone, let him score his little 28, 29, 30 points. Because the minute I get in his face, he's gonna drop 50 points on me. He's gonna make me look bad. You know what I mean? So.
And then how many people thought there would be the next Michael Jordan, but they came and went, dude. Nobody compared to him. There was, they said, "Oh, this guy's the next big thing." Was there really ever? I mean, we talk about Kobe Bryant. I think Kobe Bryant's about, you got Kobe, you got Shaq, you got a couple other guys, but I mean,
the only person I will put in that category is Kobe Bryant, and I'm just being honest. And remember, there was a small point where everybody thought Harold Miner would be the next Michael Jordan, I guess because he dunked really well. And then for one point early on in his career, they thought J.R. Ryder would be the next Michael Jordan.
Right, right.
But at the same time, the only person that came close was Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant studied everything Michael Jordan. And everybody want to talk about how Kobe emulated Michael Jordan and did this and did that. But my thing
Grant
is,
Hill was another one.
Yeah. If you want to be the best player in the world, why don't you imitate the best player in the world? You know what I'm saying? If I want to be the best fighter, who's the best fighter out there? That's what I'm going to try to emulate. So how can you knock Kobe for studying video of Michael Jordan and emulating some of his moves? Kobe Bryant is the closest thing we'll ever see to Michael Jordan, and I'll stand on that 10 toes down.
I'm going to have to agree with you. Kobe Bryant is right there with Michael Jordan, for sure. For sure. Everyone wanted to be like Mike, but Kobe got to be like him, especially when you got to play with him, against him as well. I mean, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. Kobe came into the league. Michael took him under his wing. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Michael took him under his wing, talked to Michael Jordan on the regular. You know what I mean? But Jordan helped groom him into who he was, and Kobe just took off, man. Kobe was a pop icon. You know, he took Brandy on prom, and that crushed my spirit back in the day. I was a young teenager. Took Brandy on prom. Then he got drafted in the NBA out of high school, and he ended up with the Lakers. And I remember they traded up Eddie Jones away just for Kobe Bryant. Eddie Jones was Eddie Jones was a man on the Lakers at the time, and they traded away Eddie Jones to Charlotte to get Kobe to make room for Kobe Bryant. You know what I mean? And that goes to show you how much the Lakers was sold on Kobe Bryant, man. And it was a great move. You know what I mean? Great move. They traded Nick Van Exel.
Yeah.
They traded away some absolute studs to put their faith in Kobe Bryant, man, and it worked out.
I think Michael knew. You know, we talked about the passing of the torch. I think Michael knew Kobe was the guy that he was passing the torch to. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know, like I said, Kobe is the next best thing we ever seen to Michael Jordan. There's a lot of great players now. You know what I mean? And I'll give them all the credit where credit is due. But I look at more than stats when I look at a player, and that's why personally Kobe is my second favorite player ever. You know what I mean? Because Kobe was more than just a stats man and a ring man. Kobe was everything to the Lakers that Michael Jordan was to the Bulls. You know what I mean? And it was the only one that matched his killer instinct. Kobe
Absolutely
started the Mamba mentality. It's just what Kobe had his own thing. It was the Mamba mentality. Kobe was kamikaze. Kobe was going to win or die trying. You know what I mean? And that was the same mentality Michael Jordan had back then. You know, and that's why Kobe is my second favorite player ever. You know what I mean? Outside of Michael Jordan. And Kobe wanted the ball at the end of the game, you know, just like Mike wanted the ball at the end of the game. Kobe, you know, he wanted to accept his responsibility if they lost. You know what I mean?
A lot of similarities there, and Michael saw it, dude. Michael knew it, dude. Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%, my man.
Like I said, Kobe wanted to be the best, so he studied the best. And that's why he gained the success that he gained. That's why, like I said, Kobe is my second greatest player ever on the planet. You know, even though we have some great ones now, we have some great players now. But when you keep Kobe and let Shaq go, that says a lot. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know, absolutely. You know what I mean? When you got a monster, Shaquille O'Neal, you have to pick between Shaq and Kobe, and you choose Kobe. You know, it says a lot. You know what I mean? And not only did they choose Kobe, but they won again with Kobe. You know what I'm saying? Kobe won with Shaq, and Kobe won without Shaq.
The most dominant center of all time, hands down, no doubt about it.
Absolutely, he won with the most dominant center of all time. And on a side note, off the subject, I just want to say Shaq has been more lucky than any player in the league. You talk about all these other guys. Shaq had Penny. Then he went from Penny to Kobe. Then he went from Kobe to D-Wade. You know, so as great of a player Shaq is, I'm gonna be a little bit honest. Shaq was fortunate enough to play with the best two guards in the league every year of his career.
That's right. That's right.
You know, so I'm just going to throw that out there. I know this is Bulls talk, but I just want to say Shaq, as great of a player he was, you know, he was fortunate enough to have the best two guard in the game every year he was in the league, man. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right. Based on that, we discussed 3 and 4 and a little bit extra stuff after the Jordan era. We're talking about Kobe as well and Shaquille O'Neal. So now we're going to be looking forward to our next episodes. Before we go, though, Terry, your final opinions on these episodes here and who took the biggest L of the night?
Biggest L of the night, I would have to say those Detroit Pistons, man. You know,
biggest loss of the night, man.
Walking off the court like that, you know what I mean? It was classless. It was low rent. Isaiah Thomas could make up all the excuses he wanted about what the Celtics did to them. They wasn't playing the Celtics. They were playing the Bulls. You know what I mean?
Well, we said that in the beginning. Let's rewind real quick here at our last discussion here of this episode that we're going to talk about. So we're talking about Bulls finally beat the Pistons, okay, in the Palace of Auburn Hills in Michigan. Bill Laimbeer, scumbag to this day. I think Bill Laimbeer is still a scumbag, and no classless piece of shit that he is. He was the one who suggested we're not shaking their hands. He said that. It's said in the documentary. Bill Laimbeer is the one who came up with the idea. We're not shaking their hands. So, and with the smell on his face too, the piece of garbage that he was, scumbag piece of shit.
That's why I say it's the biggest. And that's why I say it's the biggest L, because everybody finally see what dicks they were.
Right, because all Jordan had to say was that, hey, we beat these guys. We lost to these guys. All right. Well, before that, Isaiah Thomas said, well, the Celtics walked off. I had to stop Kevin McHale and this and that. They were on the actual court. But then, the same thing with us before them. And Jordan goes, but you know what, though? We got our asses kicked 2 years in a row. And he literally said, I congratulated every player. Jordan shook everybody's hand after taking 2 years of a loss in the conference finals.
Yeah. And I'm like Horace Grant said last night, straight up bitches.
Still to this day, and I agree with that.
Leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that, and not the good kind either. You know what I mean?
Look, exactly, and that's why I'm glad the world finally got to see this, and that's why I say it's the biggest L, because there's no way to talk around this. There's no way for them to spin it now. There's no way for them to explain it. Everybody, the entire world saw that they acted like straight up bitches.
I don't know what it is with Chicago and Detroit, man. We hate the Pistons from the NBA side. The Red Wings are big rivals of the Blackhawks, and of course the White Sox and the Tigers hate each other, man. Something with Chicago and Detroit, man. You know what I mean?
Detroit is the annoying little brother of Chicago. Detroit wants to be Chicago. You know what I mean? And and that's just what it is. I'm gonna leave it at that. Detroit wants to be Chicago so bad, and that's what it is. They're our annoying little brother, and they're throwing on our side. They're gonna be around, unfortunately.
It's never gonna end.
That's what we think.
Detroit is the middle brother. Milwaukee's the youngest. Absolutely. Wisconsin with the Bears and Packers too, and Green Bay a little further north up the way.
Way more ground. Milwaukee's gaining way more ground than Detroit right now. So I mean that's gonna probably change in a little bit. You know what I mean? So we're not going to talk about that horrible team up there in the NFL.
Right. So, we don't want to even say that. But I mean, but to this day, the hatred's still there. So on that, we love everybody, though. Terry House has joined me again this week. I want to thank Terry House, my main man there in Indiana, 13 years, professional fighter and Bulls fanatic and historian. I'm Joe Rossi for FightCard Entertainment, your ring announcer and reporter, and we've been going here talking about our second episode based on episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance. Please join us next Monday, 8 p.m. Central Time, as we discuss episodes 5 and 6. And, of course, join myself and Brian Angelo this Thursday at 4 p.m. for FightCard Entertainment MMA Live. So,
absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, back in the studio. FightCard Entertainment, Nilo and the guys there back at the studio. Big shout out to everybody at FightCard behind the scenes and our fans. Most importantly, we hope everybody's staying strong together. And we really, without the fans, we're nothing. Also, all you gamers out there, a new thing that FightCard did on Friday, Warfare video games. Join us on the FightCard page. Follow FightCard Entertainment on social media, Facebook, for all the extra shows we're doing, from the video games to the FightCard Live to, of course, Terry and myself here with the Bulls Last Dance documentary. So once again, thank you to all our fans. Go ahead, Terry. Let me just say really quick, if Brian Angelo don't text me by the end of the week, we are no longer friends. So somebody get that message to him. Are you putting Brian Angelo in the same category as Jerry Krause?
No, not. I'm not gonna go that far because Jerry Krause is a chick. But I
gotta bust Brian's balls. Not yet. I gotta bust Brian's balls.
Check messages from Brian Angelo by the end of this week. My feelings will be very hurt.
I gotta bust Brian's balls. The boss, of course, and Nilo, of course, back there. We thank everybody. So for Terry in Indiana. He's sure put in way better shape. for everybody, I want to thank again all our crew in the background there, Nilo and the guys at the studio. Thank you guys, and of course Brian Angelo as well. Terry, you're an awesome co-host with me, brother. I love doing this with you.
Thank you.
I know the fans love you as well. Thank you so much. So, on behalf of everybody, don't forget next Monday night we'll be back for episodes 5 and 6. Thursday, Fight Card Live at 4 p.m. and Friday night, all you video gamers out there, follow the Fight Card page for Warfare Games and join in on the action. For everybody at FightCard Entertainment MMA, I want to thank you all. Have a wonderful and blessed week ahead, and thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night. Pray first.